I'm no fan of Lesley Stahl. I really marveled at how she's had such a long career. And if you think about it, name the one thing that Lesley Stahl has done that was fantastic. The one thing that's noteworthy. It's like, wow, Lesley Stahl, she's that reporter who did X. Yeah, go ahead and think that through for a minute, because right now, I think the only answer to that question is that Lesley Stahl is the CBS News journalist who did this.
The terrorists became very mean and very cruel and violent.
More so.
Much more so. They were beating me and starving me.
Do you think they starved you, or they just didn't have food?
No, I think they starved me, and they would often eat in front of me and not offer me food.
That's Lesley Stahl. That's 60 Minutes. That's CBS News. She's interviewing a freed American Israeli hostage who was captured and has been subsequently tortured for months and months by Hamas terrorists. Did you see what she did?
The terrorists became very mean and very cruel and violent.
More so.
Much more so. They were beating me and starving me.
Do you think they starved you, or they just didn't have food?
Look at that face. You have to be an Upper West Side of Manhattan intellectual to even form the thought in your head, let alone then make the synapses inspire you to say something that vile out loud while sitting across from a freed hostage, a person who was tortured by terrorists. Sure, they didn't feed you, but of course, you know, the Israelis, they cut off the supply line, so they didn't have any food. So it's really Netanyahu's fault. Oh, yeah, they may have starved you, but, you know, they were starving too. I've seen it on social media. You know, the Palestinians, they're the real victims here. They didn't really starve you. They just didn't have food themselves. Right. By the way, I love the fact that she leaves out the whole beating part. Maybe the beating part was a clue, Les. Right? What does he say they did?
Cruel and violent.
More so.
Much more so. They were beating me and starving me.
Oh, sure. They were beating you. I mean, come on. You probably deserved it after all. You are Jewish. But the starving part, we understand that because they probably didn't have enough food themselves. By the way, have you seen these hostages when they get released? They're so emaciated, their skin is hanging off of their bones. And by the way, if you took a second, you know, this is one of my favorite things about these journalists, these so-called reporters, these so-called media figures who don't actually follow the news much. To me, I'm silly this way. I think if I'm going to come in front of a camera and speak into a microphone and tell you about what's going on in the news, that I should actually follow the news. I can actually see what's going on. I've seen these hostages being released. And not only do I see how starved and emaciated and tortured they are, but I look at the terrorists. They seem to be doing okay. They seem pretty healthy. Some of them have pot bellies. I promise you, they're eating high on the hog there in Hamasville, you know, right up until the rocket comes blasting through their windows, rightly so. What kind of despicable, evil, frankly, I mean, I know, oh, that's so stupid, that's so dumb. Yeah, she's pretty stupid, she's pretty dumb. This is also pretty evil. What kind of lack of humanity do you have to possess to sit across from this man who is a torture? God bless him, he's been liberated. And say, well, I mean, were they starving you, or did they just not have food themselves? You know, the budget's pretty tight over there. You know, they got to feed themselves first, and then whatever's left over, sure, they'll give to you. You know, did the Nazis really murder all those Jews in the Holocaust, or was it just sort of, you know, they had to take care of themselves, and at the end of the day, you know, what are you going to do with all these Jews lying around? It's evil. It's evil. And this is Lesley Stahl. This is her legacy. This is the only thing that you should remember about her. Actually, there's one other thing you should remember about her, and we'll share that with you in just a minute. But seriously, and why is it you don't hear anything from her colleagues? Right? Colleagues on competitor networks. See, I would think if I'm at CNN, I'm like, I want to get better ratings than CBS. I want to do better than CBS. I want to prove to my viewers on CNN that I'm better than CBS. So why isn't every anchor on CNN showing this, saying, wow, what the hell is Lesley Stahl thinking? They're terrible over there. I'll answer that question in a minute. Remind me, Kevin, if I forget. Let's go to CNN, where they did have a discussion about this. And Scott Jennings, thankfully, because he doesn't fashion himself a reporter or a journalist, he's not in the club with Lesley Stahl. So he's allowed to, tell the truth.
We are back, and it's time for the News Nightcap, Torpedo Bat Edition. The Yankees are setting a franchise home run record with a new type of baseball bat, ones with different shapes and that aren't against the rules, apparently. So each of you now have a few seconds to tell us what else is overdue for an upgrade.
They make those bats in Louisville, Kentucky at Louisville Slugger, so congrats down there. Look, mine is this, an everyday item that needs an upgrade, Lesley Stahl at 60 Minutes. After I saw Lesley ask hostage Keith Siegel this weekend, when he said he'd been starved in captivity, he said, well, maybe they just didn't have enough food to give you. And he had to set her straight. She's been there since 1991. Well, I'm sorry, Lesley, it's time for an upgrade. That was a terrible question.
They were beating me and starving me.
Do you think they starved you or they just didn't have food?
Yeah, that's pretty awful. Good job on Scott Jennings there. And he points out what I want to dwell on a little bit. As I mentioned earlier, can you name one thing noteworthy in Lesley Stahl's career that she has done? And I'm not talking about some, title that she's held. Anybody can hold a title. There are presidents of the United States who held that, the noteworthy thing is that they won the election. But after that, what did they actually do? Right? It's amazing how few people there have been as president of the United States, right? Like 47 of them, 46 actually. Actually, it's 45 now that I think about it. I digress. How few people in American history have been the president of the United States, but even fewer, you could actually point to something noteworthy. Like, quick, what did Millard Fillmore do that's noteworthy? Right? There was a time when he was president. All right. So let's set aside as like, well, she's this or she's that or she's no. I understand. She was the first woman White House correspondent for a major network. She covered Jimmy Carter and she covered Ronald Reagan as the first woman doing that job. Okay, great. That's a title that she earned, right? Someone had to be the first woman. She was the first woman. But what did she do? Like, for instance, she was the first woman White House correspondent for a major network covering Jimmy Carter. So can you point to something she did as a reporter that was noteworthy, that actually made a difference, that challenged Jimmy Carter? Nothing. Nothing. I've been thinking about it. Scott Jennings just pointed out the fact that she's been in this position now since 1991. Since 1991. That's older than many of you are, right? That's longer than you've been on this planet. So what kind of lousy career is it that the only thing that's noteworthy about it is a moment like that? And yet her colleagues will not criticize her. They won't jump out. But why won't they? Why didn't Abby Phillips just jump in there and say, you know what, Scott, I'm glad you mentioned that because I share the same profession as Lesley Stahl, and that was atrocious. They won't do it. Jake Tapper won't do it. Wolf Blitzer won't do it. George Stephanopoulos won't do it. But David Muir won't do it. Nobody will do it. And I'm talking about competitors, not colleagues that actually, share a lunchroom with Lesley Stahl. I'm talking about people on other networks. Why? Why won't they say what is obvious to the rest of humanity? Now, again, I'll get to it in a second. Here's another noteworthy moment for Lesley Stahl. This isn't on CBS News. I mentioned the Upper West Side of Manhattan, 92nd Street wide, the bastion. This is actually on the east side, if I remember right, East 92nd Street. It's a bastion of liberal intellectuals. You're nothing until you have a moment at the 92nd Street Y to have an audience full of liberal intellectuals, very, very rich liberal intellectuals, sit and wring their hands and ponder what it is to have to deal with flyover country. And here she is with Peggy Noonan talking about the future of media and journalism in America.
If you watch the opinion of us, how many people trust the press anymore? I mean, we're way down there with the lawyers.
Yeah.
This is really rough, as you know.
You're way down there with Congress.
I despair. Seriously, I worry greatly. We're at a point where if the president of the United States is going to say legacy media is dead, well, I guess Musk said that. Legacy media is dead.
And he wants it dead. He wants other media.
But it is kind of sort of hobbling right now. And I don't know how it recovers. I'm very dark about it.
Well, Biden just pardoned Hunter for what was on the laptop that Lesley Stahl said was fake. and Lesley doesn't know how the media recovers, retire, Lesley. With all due respect, you're the reason why.
Yeah, Jesse's right there. And of course, that was a moment, as you know, right before the inauguration when she made those remarks, as you heard from the reference to the pardon for Hunter Biden. But Lesley Stahl wondering why the media has such low ratings and why they're not trusted, and then immediately blaming Elon Musk and Donald Trump. You know, Elon Musk might say that the legacy media is dead. Donald Trump might say the legacy media is dead. And boy, I worry about that because we're hobbled right now. Why? It has nothing to do with Donald Trump. Donald Trump doesn't have to say a damn thing about you. Elon Musk doesn't have to say a damn thing about you. You're doing it yourself, lady. What's killing legacy media? What's killing their approval ratings with the American people? Why don't we trust people like Lesley Stahl, 60 Minutes, or CBS News? This is why.
They were beating me and starving me.
Do you think they starved you or they just didn't have food?
That's why. The calls from coming inside the house, ma'am. You're to blame. You've created this situation. Peggy Noonan is right. We do want it to go away. We want legacy media to die because they don't deserve to have the prominence they have right now. You know, there's a big controversy at the White House right now because the Trump administration is now taking control of seat assignments inside the briefing room. Yeah. You know, you ever wonder why the certain reporters are in the front row all the time and they're all in the same assigned seats? It's not because the press secretary says that. The White House Correspondents Association, which, by the way, last time I checked, is not an official organization of the U.S. government. It's not protected by the Constitution. No one gives a crap about the White House Correspondents Association. They've taken control of the seat assignments in the briefing room. Who let that happen, by the way? And now the Trump administration is saying, no longer. We'll be in charge of who sits where in this room. It's our room. It's not your room. And they're all going to plan a sit-down strike, right? Like it's the 60s or something, and they're going to go back to their hippie days. They're going to play Peter, Paul, and Mary and celebrate the righteous cause of White House reporters. Give me a break. You want people to be on your side? Maybe you should get something right once in a while. Think about the White House correspondents for a second. They have one job, cover the presidency. And the White House correspondents who have literally a front row seat to the White House, to the president, and to the administration, either completely missed the biggest story of the Biden presidency, which was his mental, physical, and cognitive incapacity to do the job. They either missed that story, even though they had front row access to witness it themselves. They either missed it, they ignored it, or they helped cover it up. And now we're supposed to cry for them? Our hearts are supposed to bleed for them because they're not allowed to pick their seats in the briefing room? That's why the American people have lost confidence in them. That's why people hate reporters like Lesley Stahl. I said that you'd remember her legacy for just this one last thing. That's not true. Two things. Number one, telling a hostage of Hamas that maybe they didn't deliberately starve him. Maybe they just didn't have food. And then there's this. She did not cover the 2020 presidential campaign. She covered up the 2020 presidential campaign. This was her behavior with Donald Trump on the Hunter Biden laptop story and on Spygate when the Comey-led FBI spied on the Trump campaign with the false made-up charges of Russian collusion. Watch and remember this exchange. And also note that part of the video you're going to see here, we only have because the Trump administration at the time made their own independent video. It got cut out. It got discarded. It got put on the editing room floor. They didn't want you to see it. You only see portions of this video because the Trump administration kept it. They didn't put it out there on 60 Minutes for their viewers to see. So watch the whole thing.
You know, this is 60 Minutes, and we can't put on things we can't verify.
You won't put it on because it's bad for Biden.
We can't put on things we can't verify.
Lesley, I think it's one of the biggest scandals I've ever seen, and you don't cover it. Because you want to talk about?
Well, because it can't be verified.
You want to talk about insignificant things.
I'm telling you.
Of course, it can be verified. Excuse me. They found the laptop, Lesley.
It can't be verified.
What can't be verified?
So they're talking about real fast, and this is the portion that they didn't let their viewers see, which is telling. That's why it's off mic. This was just a camera that the White House archivist set up. But they're talking about the Hunter Biden laptop story, and you hear her off mic say it can't be verified. It can't be verified. A couple of news organizations at the moment they were conducting this interview had already verified the laptop. It can be verified. Of course it can be verified. You take a look at the IP addresses on the emails that have been sent and received. You compare it to the laptop's IP. You look at all these things. You can verify whether the hard drive was tampered with or not. The Daily Caller News Foundation, I know at this moment, had already verified it, as had the New York Post. This was collusion. This was media collusion and interference in the 2020 election, lying to the president and lying to viewers. That's why they edited this out, by the way. They didn't want their viewers to see this lie, that the laptop couldn't be verified. And the best punchline of all is that a year later, the New York Times, the Washington Post, and CBS News verified the laptop. It took them a year. Didn't have to. They could have done it right then and there. But they refused to. They ignored it. Like I said, they didn't cover the 2020 presidential campaign. They covered up the presidential campaign. They were not in the business of informing the American people. They were in the business of disinforming, misinforming, and withholding facts from the American viewer. All right, so let's get back to this video. This is what happened. Again, this was October. This is like 2 weeks before Election Day on 60 Minutes.
Laptop.
Why you said that?
Because
Even the
it's
family
verified.
hasn't, the family on the laptop, he's gone into hiding. For 5 days, he's gone into hiding.
He's preparing for your debate.
Oh, it's taken him 5 days to prepare? I doubt it. I doubt it.
If I didn't have social media, I'd have no way of getting out my voice.
Do you know what you told me when I asked why you keep saying fake media? You said to me, I say that because I need to discredit you so that when you say negative things about me, no one will believe
I don't
you.
have to discredit you.
But you
You've
told me.
discredited yourself.
I didn't want to have this kind of angry.
course you did.
No, I didn't.
No, your first question was, this is going to be tough questions.
Why?
You don't ask Joe Biden. I saw your interview with Joe, the interview with Joe
I never
Biden.
did a Joe
It was
Biden
a joke.
interview.
Joe Biden giving softball after softball. I've seen all of his interviews. He's never been asked a question that's hard.
Okay, but forget him for a minute.
No, but you
You're
start with
president.
me.
You're president.
Your first statement was, are you ready for tough questions?
Are you?
That's no way to talk.
One of our producers interrupted to advise about the time remaining in the interview.
I think we have enough of an interview here, Hope. Okay, that's enough. Let's go. Let's go meet for 2 seconds, okay? Thanks. I'll see you in a little while.
And he was done. And that was the last time he sat with 60 Minutes. In fact, he didn't talk to 60 Minutes during the entire 2024 presidential campaign. Everyone said, well, you got to go on 60 Minutes, right? You got to. And he won. He won by ignoring 60 Minutes, which is exactly how they should be treated. That's what you'll remember Lesley Stahl for. That's what you should remember. That there's nothing noteworthy about her entire career or legacy other than that moment and, of course, this latest moment.
They were beating me and starving me.
Do you think they starved you or they just didn't have food?
That right there is considered an elder statesman of the American media. That is considered a journalist with the legacy and the career that other people would die for. She is the grande dame of Washington, D.C. and Manhattan journalism. And that's what goes for prize-winning kind of reporting and interviewing. For 60 Minutes, the crown jewel of the CBS News chain, which includes the CBS Evening News, which is a catastrophe right now. And of course, let's not forget Face the Nation, which is run by Margaret Brennan, who is literally a laughingstock meme every Sunday when she tries to do her histrionic behavior against J.D. Vance or Marco Rubio. She's, of course, Marco Rubio. She was the one who said that free speech led to the Holocaust. That's where CBS News is right now. And I keep mentioning, why don't her competitors call her out? Why, again, in any other competitive field, right? Imagine if this were baseball or football and you see a player screw up like that and do something. No, you draw attention to yourself by saying, yeah, I'm better. I'm better. Why isn't NBC jumping up and down saying, man, I can't believe Lesley Stahl did that. You would never see that kind of behavior here at NBC News. I hope you pick us and stop watching over there. They never do that. And the reason is they're all in the same club. They're all in the same club. And by not criticizing each other, it's kind of like a protection scam. It's like being in the mafia, right? I got your back, you got my back. So when you do stuff like this, I won't call you out on it So when I do stuff like this, I hope you don't call me out on it. Of course, it's only if you go down a certain path politically. I mean, if God forbid, Jake Tapper started cozying up to the Trump administration and started treating Democrat guests on his show hostilely, I assure you, other journalists would call him out on it. You got to stick with the team. You got to make sure that you toe the line and play by the rules. But as long as you toe the line, play by the rules, and you're on our side of the political equation, we got your back. And you can even do something like that, and you'll never get any criticism from your colleagues, even your colleagues on competitive networks. Because, whether you're on CBS or NBC or ABC or CNN or whatever, that's not important. We're all in this together. We're all on the same team, whether it's the peacock on NBC or the little eyeball on CBS. That's not our team color. Our team color is the left. We're here for the Democrats. We're here to promote the left-wing political agenda in this country. And as long as you're there, you're covered. You can do something stupid and asinine and evil, like tell a released hostage that they weren't really being starved by the terrorists. The terrorists just didn't have enough food for them. And you're golden. In fact, you're going to get a great retirement party. You'll probably get a great prize of a Pulitzer or a Peabody or an Emmy, because that's what they do. Just as long as you stay on the right team, the left.